2.5 years ago, I bought this XA Falcon Ute with plans to just quickly restore it and get it back on the road as soon as possible and just enjoy driving it around. Everyone's dream, really, when you buy an old muscle car. You just want to start cruising around and have a good time. But after taking a few things out to investigate some suspect-looking areas, I soon discovered that the car was just painted over, fiberglass and bog. And in some parts, it was completely missing entire sections of steel with just the fiberglass laying on top of it. As you can see, these pillars look horrible, and in this case, barely even connected to the lower plenum panel. So if this car were to be in a crash, it would just fall apart. Months later, I got the thing sandblasted and it just revealed more and more rust and just missing metal and some very, very questionable repairs. And so began the complete strip down of the car, replacing almost every single panel and bit of steel on this car, and probably the most painful year of my life. But that's okay because
we're on the home stretch of getting this thing done. This episode took a little bit longer to get out because I've just been sending it for the past 3 weeks. Not really filming much in the way of, oh, this is what I'm doing here. I just went ahead and did all the work. Filmed a little bits in between, just filmed what I was doing. But I just wanted to focus on getting the work done. So I finally put the pedal down and absolutely sent it. At the end of the last episode, I was having issues with the tailgate lining up correctly after putting on the right-hand side of the tray. Well, as you can see, this latch doesn't even fit in there. So I used the die grinder, grind out all those welds again, undo everything I'd done, set it back a little bit more accurately so it was equal lengths either side, and then re-weld it and go from there. But we're coming into crunch time now because I go into it in the next video, but I really need to get this thing pumping. I know I say that every episode. I say that every episode. I don't know, but I mean it this time, and I did mean it because I did get a lot of work. So let's just get straight into this video. First off, I'm starting with the driver's side wheel tub, getting that all lined up, making sure it's all straight and level, and going from there.
Getting the driver's side wheel tub lined up was quite a bit challenging as I drew it off the template of the left-hand side one, and some things had changed. The car wasn't perfectly symmetrical. So getting it perfectly lined up was a bit of an issue, but after a couple of hours of grinding out welds and welding and grinding out welds and resetting, I managed to get it pretty bang on. Before moving on to this little piece here, which just adds a little bit of strength and rigidity to the rear end of the car, and using that bolt that I've circled there, I was able to line it up perfectly and there was no issues with this piece. So this part came out of the XG, and like most other things, lines up perfectly to the XA. And next up was to grind down all the welds that I've done over the past couple of months, clean up the whole area and use the seam sealer to seal in all these seams and make sure that water can't come in or go out or any of that. I used a brush-on sealer here, which was absolutely horrible and I'll never do ever again. Before moving over to tube sealer, which is 10 times easier to apply, much easier to do.
All right, so as soon as I used the brush-on body sealer, I realized it was a huge mistake. It was just crap. It took so long to get anywhere and it looked like shit. So I went out and got the stuff in the tube and it looks a lot better. So I've just sealed where I need to seal for now on the back wall and all around in there and along there and in there. And down here, because a tray will sit on top of all that. Sealed down in there as well. Used a full tub, did all these little bits along here and along here as well. So did those bits. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. So now I'm gonna do the KBS seal stuff on. I'm literally gonna paint the whole thing. Rails, all that, sides, tubs, back wall, seal the whole thing up. I just won't be doing these upper sections here because this has to obviously weld on, and I'm still yet to replace this piece here. So I'll probably stop just underneath on both sides. But everything else is getting coated. So I'm gonna go through, prep it, get the vacuum cleaner out, try and get it as clean as possible around here and start sealing it up. Alright, so I haven't been filming much, I've just kind of been sending it. So I've welded on the inner, or is that the outer? The outer wheel guard, the outer wheel inner. I've welded this on, and then I've coated that along with the rest. So I've done 2 coats now, everything's all done. I did the second coat after the panel bond had all dried up, so I've coated over that. So now it's all black and coated and protected and sealed in. And you might be thinking it's time for the rear quarter panel. Almost. So where we're up to now is I need to finish this piece off and get that in there. But I think I cut this piece off and then I'm pretty sure I threw it away. I don't know what I did with it. I might have mistook it for scrap steel or some shit steel, so I threw it away. So before I put this bottom piece in, which is from the XG, I need to get this done. Luckily, I have a spare XA, or really I could just use the other side of the XA and just flip it, but whatever. The only difference is this doesn't have a vent, but that's easy enough to cut in afterwards. So I've done a little cardboard template of what that piece looks like. I'm just bringing this piece over here, and we now know roughly where all that goes. Because honestly, without a template, I would think that this sort of bends around this corner, but it doesn't. It actually comes out quite a fair bit and then goes in. So we'll get that made out of steel and get that in. And just like that, we have the metal piece. So this is the rough cutout that'll go there. Obviously needs a little bit of trimming, especially on this side, but I need to do that bit first. And the piece that I got from the XG to do that is actually different, totally different contour. As you can see, it comes out a lot further before it sort of bends in. So what I've done, if I can show you, is I've just cut the edge off of it, rest it there for demonstration purposes. Then we'll go in and follow the contour to join back up to there, and then I will tack it along the back here and cut away this piece that isn't needed. So that'll pretty much be bang on. Or so I think, in theory, you know. And then once that's done, I can really try and get that all leveled out. Alright, so now that this is done to a point where I can put the rear quarter panel on, obviously it's very rough as it is. It needs tidying up, it needs dressing up, but it doesn't need dressing up and tidying up to put the quarter panel on. So I'm going to start preparing the quarter panel to go on, which means coating the inside with some sealant. It's actually interesting because on this quarter panel it still has the factory sealer they use to prevent rust, which gives you an example as to why cars from the 1970s are rusted out pieces of shit within 10 years. So on the inside of this quarter panel, you can see they pretty much jam in a gun that sprays some foam or some crap, and it all just builds up in the one point and gradually disperses around the panel very lightly. And all the places that matter, i.e. along here and up through there and also here, don't get touched. But the places that really don't matter, which is the middle of the panel, get absolutely blasted with. So that's why muscle cars rust out in the 80s, and why cars in the 80s, they must have changed the system in the 80s, because then you got a car from like the late 80s and still today they're in pretty good condition. They're not rusted out like these things are. So yeah. But first thing, to get the rear quarter panel on, we're going to install this little XA tail light piece here, which makes me wonder, if I had just gotten an XG ute and taken the body panels off it, could I have just put all the body panels of the XA on it? Probably would have been a lot quicker, who knows. But this XA piece, as you can see, fits perfectly on the piece from the XG Falcon ute. So 25 years later, they still kept the exact same stuff. So I'm gonna get that mounted on. And then once that's mounted on and that's all in position, I get it all right to level and all that sort of good stuff, then this will go on, line up with that, and then we can sort of roughly set it in position.
While lining up the quarter panel, I actually have no idea if there is any specific way you're meant to do it. I just went for gold, and if it matched up to the holes, it matched up. And it matched up pretty bloody perfectly. So I'm happy with that. I'm just going to weld it in place, and then I'm going to worry about repairing those lower sections much later on down the track. But just as long as the car is complete and well put together, that's all that really matters, and as long as it looks like a car.
Right, there we have it. Technically, it's on. I say technically because I haven't done all the welds because I ran out of gas in the welder. So I take that as a sign. To get this on, just did quick tacks there and there with gasless, no gas, so they look horrible. But to get that on, huge. I've also started to lay some filler in the engine bay on that flat panel just to flatten it out a little bit more, because I have to paint the engine bay very soon because the engine has to go in very soon. More on that later. But pretty stoked with that. Starting to look more and more like an actual car. And with that, that's the end. Give the video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you enjoyed watching this, or even if you didn't enjoy watching it. It takes like 2 seconds just to press the like button for no reason. So that'd be pretty cool if you did that. But I'm pretty stoked. It's, as you can see in the background, like if you squint, like if I blur it out a little bit, it looks like an actual like running, driving car. If it had taillights in it, sweet. And to me, that's a win. So got a whole heap done in this episode. This is the culmination of about 3 weeks worth of work, and it's like a 10-minute YouTube video. So stoked with that. And now I can finally tidy things up and clean up wells and do all that. Obviously I have to get this top section on as well. That's just sitting in there. So that'll be grafted on there at one point. So I'll just tell you right now, what'll be happening in the next episode is I'll be getting the tray cut and the piece of metal that will be acting as the tray. I'll be putting that in, and also getting the engine in the engine bay. Mounting that up, painting the engine bay in the color. I've already got the paint for it, proper color that I want the engine bay done in, because it's not black, because you can't have a black engine in the black engine bay. You lose the engine, you lose all the cool anodized black bits on the engine. So not a black engine bay. So we'll be doing that next episode, and also the engine bay of the XC. We'll be getting the engine bay of the XC done, so the 2J goes in there. But it won't be episode 1 of the XC. It'll be episode 0.2 of the XC. I don't know. That's all from me. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.
I hit record a drop, you can't ignore it. I'm transforming now these cars and planes, I'm always boarding. Just out touring down in Charlotte like I play for Hornets. When I'm performing, never boring, now you can't afford it. Champagne Perrier.